Why can a teenager argue for hours about the meaning of life and then completely forget to take out the trash? Why does it feel to them like the entire class is staring at their new sneakers? And why does a teacher's small comment feel like a world-ending catastrophe? It's not about character, and it's not just a difficult age. It comes down to how the brain is structured and rewiring itself during this period. Let's start with the most important change, the emergence of abstract thinking. Around age 11 or 12, children gradually stop thinking only in concrete terms. Before, they were mainly interested in things they could see and touch. Now they become capable of reasoning about justice, freedom, the meaning of life, and hypothetical situations, what if? This is exactly why teenagers suddenly get drawn into philosophical debates, start questioning authority, and react strongly to any injustice, real or perceived. This isn't rebellion for its own sake, it's a natural stage of cognitive development that psychologist Jean Piaget called the stage of formal operations. Alongside this, a particular kind of egocentrism develops, not selfishness in the everyday sense, but a psychological phenomenon. Psychologist David Elkind described this as the imaginary audience. Teenagers feel as though everyone around them is constantly watching and judging every detail of their hairstyle, their clothes, the way they talk. In reality, other people think about them far less than it feels like, but the feeling itself is very real, and it explains why small things can trigger such intense reactions. Related to this is another phenomenon known as the personal fable. Teenagers often feel that their emotions are unique, that no one has ever felt quite what they're feeling, and that nothing bad could really happen to them. This creates a sense of invulnerability that pushes them toward risk-taking of fast driving, experimenting with forbidden things, impulsive decisions. This is where biology comes in. The part of the brain responsible for impulse control, planning, and weighing consequences, the prefrontal cortex, takes the longest to develop and isn't fully mature until around age 23 to 25. Meanwhile, the limbic system, responsible for emotion and reward, is already running at full capacity. The result is a gap. A powerful emotional engine paired with brakes that aren't fully calibrated yet. That's what explains impulsivity, mood swings, and sensation-seeking, and not carelessness, but a nervous system that's still maturing. Peer influence deserves special attention here too. Research in neuropsychology shows that teenagers make riskier decisions in the presence of friends than when they're alone. Even just the thought of being observed by peers activates the brain's reward centers more strongly than at any other age. Peer opinion can become literally more powerful than the voice of reason, which is part of why teenagers often behave so differently around friends than they do around their parents. Another key process during this stage is the search for identity. Psychologist Erik Erikson described adolescence as a time when a person searches for the answer to the question, who am I? This is why we see constant shifts in style, hobbies, opinions, music taste, and even friend groups. It's not a sign of flakiness, it's a way of trying on different roles in order to eventually assemble them into a coherent sense of self. It's also worth mentioning what happens with sleep. Teenagers' biological clocks shift. Melatonin, the sleep hormone, starts being released later in the evening than it does in children or adults. So it genuinely is harder for them to fall asleep at 10 at night and harder to wake up early, and that's physiology, not laziness. And chronic sleep deprivation, in turn, amplifies irritability, reduces concentration, and intensifies an already unstable emotional state. So what does this mean for parents and anyone who interacts with teenagers? Above all, it means understanding that intense reactions, mood swings, risk of taking, and dependence on friends' opinions aren't signs of a bad character. They're a predictable stage of brain development. The teenage brain isn't broken, and it isn't worse than an adult brain. It's simply still under construction, and that construction happens through trial, error, argument, and self-discovery. Support tends to work better than control during this period. A conversation as equals works better than a lecture. And understanding what's happening on the inside works better than reacting to what's happening on the outside. Adolescence isn't a problem to be endured. It's one of the most intense periods of growth in a person's entire life, and how it unfolds shapes a great deal about the adult that person becomes.